Hi, and thank you for joining us for this episode of The State of Leadership Simple and Beyond. That is Robert Hilliard. I am Whitney Wiley, and we are here on Thursdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific, talking all things leadership. And today we're going to be talking about stress and anxiety. It is the holiday season, and it's the time of year where the stress and anxiety that is normally rampant is ramped up just a little bit. Just a little bit. All the things people have, all the things that they're trying to get done, regardless of what your belief system is, right? This just happens to be sort of that time of year that people are on edge, trying to get a lot done, trying to fit it all in and work at the same time. So, whatever is happening in your workplace, right? There's some simple tools, some techniques, some strategies that you can use for yourself, use for your team to help everyone bring it down just a little bit so that you can enjoy all those holiday parties, right? All of the holiday parties and inside and outside of work. So what say you, Robert?
I totally agree. This is a high stress time of year for many reasons. When you look at the home front, it's usually, the holidays are coming, like you said. Relatives always bring stress. I don't know why. Well, we could, getting gifts for people at the job, year end, closing things out. So hitting those goals. I know a lot of my clients right now are talking about performance appraisals and the stress of getting that stuff done. But like you said, there are things that you can do that will help you manage your stress better.
I was doing a training yesterday and we were talking about performance appraisals, and I was talking to a potential new client the other day who was telling me that it was a law firm that they had not done any, right? I was like, how do you not do performance appraisals? How is that a thing? And then yesterday in the training, they were talking about the stress of getting them done, finding the time to get them done, doing them well, not just doing them for the sake of. And we should probably have a whole episode on that, right? How to do them well, and in the whole purpose in the first place. And so certainly that adds to the stress that leaders have and employees, because sometimes you don't know what's coming, right? The feedback that comes with that. So so many things that can add to our stress. And when we were discussing the topic for today, you mentioned that this is something that you spend quite a bit of time with your clients talking about. So why don't we start with what stress and anxiety are? Do you want to lead that discussion?
Well, yeah, sure. To me, and for what I usually deal with, stress and anxiety are future things that have not happened yet that you are thinking about, or it could be things that have happened in the past that you assume are going to happen again. And typically they start thinking about those things. They create stress for them, anxiety for them. Sometimes they even catastrophize about those things, but it's usually about things that are off in the future that
Yeah.
you're trying to manage in the present.
Yeah, right. I think it's important to recognize that stress is natural. It's a natural phenomenon. It is something that helps us protect ourselves, right? In the times when particularly physical dangers were a natural part of our lives, lions, tigers, bears, and that kind of stuff, right? Stress is what helps keep us alive. What is not natural, though, is for us to be in a constant state of stress. And while we are, for most of us anyway, are not under physical stress and duress every day, right? There certainly are situations, things that are happening around the world right now. Sometimes the environment in your home is it creates a physical danger, right? For most of us, it's mental. It's things that we have created in our heads that keep us under constant state of stress and fight, flight, freeze. And then there's one more that someone added in somewhere along the way, right? Um, and so that's stress. But what happens naturally, ordinarily, is that whatever creates those outside influences, those external factors, once they pass, they go away. And so the kinds of stresses that we tend to have in a workplace come from deadlines, workloads, and interpersonal conflicts, right? The relationships that we have at work. And if those things are pervasive, we're constantly under stress. And then anxiety is that, sort of stress personified, right? Exponentially. And it's persistent. And as Robert said, it's sort of the worry that happens because you're living in the future instead of living in the now, right? You're focused on what's going to happen or what may happen rather than what is happening, and that sort of extra future focus adds to the stressors. And in a work context, this probably shows up with worry about performance, right? Decision making or job security, those kinds of things. And so the difference is really that stress is an external reaction to something, and it typically passes when the situation is resolved, and anxiety persists and can hang with us for prolonged periods of time. The unfortunate part of it is that it can start to manifest physically for us, right? And headaches, muscle tension, fatigue, difficulty sleeping creates irritability. And if you're irritable in the workplace and you take that home with you, or you're irritable at home and you take it to work with you, right? It can exacerbate and create problems with your relationships. And
Mhm.
take that out into the world when you're shopping or, doing at holiday parties or whatever, it can create more problems for you.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head when you said, I think you said, not all stress is bad, right? Because stress can, and I was taking some notes as always. So stress reactions can be good things. When you work in an environment where it's going to be really stressful, you should train with a certain amount of stress. Like police officers do it, firefighters do it, military does, they do that type of thing. We do it in martial arts. There's a certain type of stress that helps you build muscle. It helps you. It could be mental muscle. It could be physical muscle. It could be emotional muscle. Using muscle metaphorically, of course, but you can, if you have controlled stress, it can really help you grow and be better at your job.
Yeah.
But it's when it becomes unwieldy, when you can't manage it, or when it becomes almost, how should I say this? I'm not trying to single out certain people, but there are certain people, I call them stress seekers. They seem to collect stress and stressors. Catastrophe. I have a friend I love very much. She tends to catastrophize things that are way off into the future, or things that may not even happen. And most of the time they don't happen. and I remind her, hey, listen, remember before you were thinking about this, it didn't happen. But there are some people, that's how they maneuver through life. They think that if they worry about the worst case scenario, it'll help them prepare for that thing that's going to happen. But that worst case scenario never happens for many of these people, and they end up stressing themselves out. And like you said, have really detrimental effects on your body, and it can cause disease. It can, all kinds of things can happen if you are perpetually stressed out.
And it will impact your performance at work, right? So whether you're being evaluated or not, it can impact your performance, right? Because it leads to decreased productivity, because we have a well of energy. And we talk about energy as part of the simple leadership method, right? Energy. And unless you are doing something to increase your energy and keep your energy high, stress will decrease your energy. It will decrease your productivity. That results in more errors, and again, strain relationships with colleagues. So while it is a stress that is beneficial, right? It's normal and it's beneficial. It can protect you. It can save you. It can also be detrimental to your health, physical, mental, emotional, your work, productivity. And so we want to talk about how some ways, some techniques, some approaches that you can use to help you with stress, particularly in this heightened stress time of year, and things you can do to impact the environment that you are leading or are in for the benefit of the others on your team. So when you are working with clients, Robert, what are some of the things that you do or suggest or guide them through or help them recognize, right, that they can do to address stress and anxiety in their lives?
One of the first things that I do with my clients is find out where the stress is coming from. That's the first step. Where's the stress coming from? And then we look at how real that stress is, right? Because we talked about this. Sometimes people create stress in their head, but it's not real stress. I mean, it's real for them because they're creating it. And a good friend of mine said, whether you imagine a tiger is chasing you or a tiger is chasing you, a tiger is chasing you. So you have to realize, I help them realize, is it real? Where's it coming from? And then, then you rate it on a simple scale, 1 to 10, 1 to 5, whatever works for you or the client. And how stressful is it? And what can you do to decrease it? Where do you want to be on that stress level? And what small step you can take to start decreasing that stress? If you're a people pleaser, it's usually telling people no. If the stress is coming from a lack of time management, certainly showing them time management resources and helping them find out where they can have some leverage there. When I work with my clients, what I try to stress with them first and foremost is, when you have a lot of anything, we're talking about stress in this particular case, my goal is to give them just a little bit of elbow room so they can start relaxing a little bit right away, and they can get some clarity. And once you have clarity, you can start thinking about strategies, and it will help you create actions that will decrease your stress.
And so what I heard you say, even though you didn't say it this way, getting some self-awareness around, right? And getting to the heart of the matter. We talk a lot about curiosity here, being curious, asking the questions. What's causing this? What am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? And testing whether or not what you're thinking and feeling, is it grounded in and you're absolutely right. If you think it's real, it's real. Your brain doesn't know the difference between, but you can test the veracity of that, right? You can test to see whether or not it is something that you're creating in your head or if it's something that's happening. In the work context, if you think that, and this is something that happens quite a bit, right? You think that your boss has it out for you, right? Does your boss have it out for you, or you just think your boss has it out for you, right? And so testing that, asking the questions, and I do the same thing with my clients when they present whatever. It's like, is that real or is that Memorex?
Mhm.
Is that real, or are you creating that in your head? And if you don't take the time to ask the questions, right, you can be operating under a false assumption and exacerbating, making something worse than it needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, on a basic level, is really just looking at your biases when we're talking about, is your boss really after you? There are some people that have really strong confirmation biases. They can make themselves see anything that they want to see. My boss doesn't like me. And I've worked with younger folks on this. I've worked with older folks on this. I've worked with kids with this. When somebody wants to see something, they're going to see it.
True.
It's help them create that awareness to let them know that what you're seeing is damaging you, is hindering you, it's hurting your relationship. So that's one thing. The other thing that I do with my clients is when they start talking about their stress, one of the things I typically do is I'll say, well, what's your day like? And if you usually with people that have high stress, they go from one action to another action to another action to another action to another action, all of that for their job. And then when they finish their job, they do more actions for other people and other people and other people. And then by the end of the night, it's time for them to go to bed. They have like 5-10 minutes to spend with their spouse, maybe 15 minutes if they're lucky. That's usually spent just, talking about whatever they can, try to squeeze meaning out of, and then they go to bed and it starts all over again. So, looking for spaces where they can create some time for themselves to be, whether it's, and you know me, I try to stay away from woo woo, but sometimes you need a little some clients, they don't want to hear the word mindfulness at all. Some clients come to me and they bring that together. I want to talk to you more about mindfulness, and I love that. So if they're into that, I have tons of resources, and I can certainly talk about that for hours, because it was one of the things that I was really, really interested in when I first started coaching and employee development years ago. So let's talk about mindfulness. Let's talk about spending some time for yourself to just be mindful, to decompress. Do you focus on your breathing at all? Do you know how you breathe? Most people don't. Most people don't even think about that. And when they do figure out how to breathe, how to breathe mindfully, they're usually learning it through some guided meditation or something like that. So it's really bringing back that focus to, hey, this is your body, being aware of your body, being mindful of what's going on in your body, taking some time for yourself to just relax a little bit and breathe. Breathing is really important when you're stressed out.
Interesting. I have had people sort of anti meditation. I don't think I've had a client that was mindfulness was an issue. So
So sometimes they link those two things together. It's like, mindfulness. And you know why? Because it became a big trend. People started talking about mindfulness, and some of the old guard are kind of like, oh, that's just a fad kind of thing. I don't want no part of that. It's really interesting.
So I'm really big on, you talked about mindfulness, breathing, right? And breathing is a very good place to start. Paying attention to how you breathe, recognizing that you do breathe, and then checking out some different breathing techniques can be really helpful. Box breathing, is a particular breathing technique that I use and that I use with my clients. But mostly it's just paying attention to how you're breathing and then taking the time to take some deep breaths, right? A lot of times, and I work with a lot of lawyers who feel like they don't have time for anything, including breathing,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And so taking a moment, we'll be in a session and it generally, well, first of all, I start my sessions with wins and successes. It's one of those things that helps sort of separate whatever's going on in life and work before we get started and brings them into a really positive space. But when we start talking about the challenges and what's going on, there is this ramping up of sort of the energy in a not necessarily positive, productive way, but this energy, they're talking really fast, right? And I can feel, right? I can feel the stress and anxiety coming about whatever's going on in life. And I find myself saying a lot, stop, breathe, right? Just breathe, right? And so if I can help them recognize that breathing as a first line of defense, right? Even when I'm not around, sort of, and when you feel yourself, sort of that whatever it is starting to rise up, just say, something's going on. Take a moment and breathe, right? Just take a couple of deep breaths. And just the physiological aspect of that, right? It helps to bring your heart rate down. It slows everything down because what happens is when you're ramped up, you can't think clearly. You
No
can't
oxygen.
be creative in your problem solving, right?
There's no oxygen getting to your brain. It's one of those interesting things. Earlier this week, I was talking to a coaching colleague, several of them, about emotions, and this is off the topic, but it's related because we were talking about bringing up emotions with your male clients as opposed to your women clients. It can be men are like, "What are you talking about? Yeah, with this breathing, I know how to breathe." It's one of those things, and I find it, and I'm making a generalization here. When I work with women, it's a lot easier to introduce some of these concepts than when I work with men.
Mhm.
Men they are reluctant to admit that they don't know. So I know how to breathe. Yeah, but are you breathing properly? Everybody knows how to breathe. You wouldn't be alive if you didn't know how to breathe. But are you breathing in a way that's helping you reduce your stress? So it's one of those things. And so I've learned to be really I was going to say introspective, but I've learned to be really watchful of my clients and their reaction to these concepts. And I gauge how I always introduce them when they're stressed. I want to just go on the record and say that, but I'm mindful as to how I introduce them.
Mm.
Because sometimes if you introduce them too quickly to certain clients, you may block them off from them. So what I do is I gauge how they respond to it. When I do have some male clients that will come to me and like, I'm desperate, I will try anything. I'm like, perfect. Let's start with some breathing, right? They've tried stuff, it's not working. They've thrown the towel in. They're desperate. They don't care whether someone called it woo woo or this or touchy feely. They just want the pain to stop, and I'll just go right for it. Other people, I need to introduce it a little more slowly.
No, it's you were just saying that you might have clients, males in particular, say, I know how to breathe. It reminded me of something that I hear in guided meditations. And I can't think of who the meditation teacher is, but it's on one of the apps that I use. And he'll say, are you breathing, or is your body breathing you, right? Because it is automatic, and you may not be doing it in a way that's particularly effective or helpful for you. And so, again, paying attention, that self-awareness, right? Coming back to being in your body rather than out here somewhere. Be in your body so that you can be in touch with what you're feeling, how stress actually manifests in your physical body, and as well as how it manifests in your moods and your psychology and how you're interacting with people. And the more you can pay attention to that, right, the more you can make adjustments and changes if necessary.
Yeah. This reminds me of something that I used to do in my workshops years ago. I would introduce diaphragmatic breathing. And I remember when I would do it, I would say, okay, fill up your stomach, like a balloon. And people, like, their chests would get really, they just could not feel their body because they were so used to breathing in a certain way. And that was, I remember that the first time I did that in my workshop, it was a revelation to me. But it was also something I took for granted because as a musician, I've taken singing lessons before, and as an instrumentalist, you always have to know where your breathing is. So it was something that I learned that breathing years ago when I was a kid, and it's something that I've done, all through my life. But if you haven't thought about it at all, it can be embarrassing. It can cause more stress for you to try to figure that out in a room full of people. But I tried to make it fun because I was like, look around you, see how people are, squirming around trying to figure out, how they could do it. It was really interesting, and we had some fun with it.
And so beyond breathing, what are some other techniques that you suggest or recommend that are helpful for your clients?
Journaling. One of the things that working on journaling, we talked about scaling your stress and identifying the areas of your life where there is stress. If it's work, what projects are causing you stress? If it's at home, where's that stress coming from? Socially, where's that stress coming from? And then like I said, looking for those areas where you can get some leverage there. And then journal how you did. What worked well? What do you want to repeat? We forget that reflecting part of it. We go, okay, I got through that, and we just leave it behind. But reflect and say, okay, this worked really well. What are some other areas where I can start, using this particular tool, this skill, so that I can start decreasing that stress there and doing those regular check-ins. So those are some of the main things, and really changing sometimes how you think about stress. Because like I said earlier, stress can be a good thing. Is the stress that you're feeling right now, is it going to make you a better leader or manager later on? Are there lessons that are being imparted because of the stress? Are you learning things that you haven't learned before because of stress? Then it's not really stress. I mean, it's stressful, but it's not the debilitating, harmful stress that people usually associate when you say stress and anxiety. And like you said, the other thing that I use with my clients is really being self-aware, being mindful of when these things happen, because when the stimulus, knowing what the stimulus is, when that stimulus occurs, or that trigger, like people like to say now, when that occurs, what do you typically do? How are you reacting to that trigger? How can you alter that so that it is not as harmful to you? How could you shift it so that it is less harmful to you? Or how can you, either avoid it? How can you shift it? How can you change it so that it's not necessarily a harmful thing, but something that's helpful? Like I mentioned before, a lot of this is how you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And not to belabor the point, I was working, I was moving something, and it was a big heavy box, and I was having somebody help me move this big heavy box, and I was in front of it holding most of the weight, and I was moving it down the steps, and I told the person to just push it. And so when they pushed it, it came, no problem. I was able to do it. I'm stronger than I look. Was able to get it, maneuver it, get it downstairs. There wasn't a problem. And I looked at the person, and they were like really, really worried. I said, "What happened?" They're like, "You almost fell down the stairs." I said, "No, I didn't." Believe me, if I almost fell down the stairs, I would have told you. I did not. But in their mind, because they were worried about me having all this weight being pushed toward me, they were, he's gonna fall down the stairs. Oh my goodness. No, I didn't. I would have told you. I would have said stop. But knowing that that's how you view certain circumstances is very helpful, because that's the situation where that was a fantasy situation. That didn't really happen. But in their mind, it happened because they were so worried about it happening, they actually saw it happen. So you need to be really mindful of those and really careful about how you are reacting to those situations. The buildup to that event is what caused that to happen. So knowing how you react to that and start engaging in some techniques to start, to give yourself some relief from that is very, very helpful.
You're talking about journaling, and I would say if I have a technique that I get pushed back on more, it's journaling, and which I find interesting. But so I have stopped calling it journaling for some of my clients. We don't talk about journaling. They take notes, right? They write things down. So if you are not into journaling, because you're, for whatever reason, right, that doesn't resonate with you, then taking notes, right, just jotting down some notes, or recording notes. And it's about tapping into what you're feeling, and the benefit for journaling and self-reflection and doing some self-awareness is that you can look and see how things change over time, because it's really easy to remember how you felt incorrectly, inaccurately 6 months ago, right? A year ago.
Memory is not reliable.
And having notes, memorializing, right, what was happening in a particular moment of time lets you make some comparisons to where you were, right? And you can make you can forecast as well, right? This is where I want to be, and which leads me to, I think I bring this up every single episode, because I just really think this is important and the key to us being the kinds of leaders that we want to be, the kinds of people that we want to be, spouses, friends, etc., is being clear about who we want to be, right? Having that vision about who we want to be. And so if you have a vision and clarity about how you want to feel, how you want to navigate life. And I would hazard to guess, I could be wrong, but I would hazard to guess no one has on their to-be list stressed out and anxiety ridden, right? I'm projecting here. I don't think anyone is like, oh, I want to walk around being anxious and stressed all the time. And so if that is not what you want to be, what do you want to be, right? So that you can focus on what you want to be, who you want to be, how you want to feel, and how you want to navigate life and relationships and work, etc. And the more you can focus then on what you do want, right, you're taking actions that move you in that direction. It starts to crowd out the other stuff. And so, a process that we use in, this vision piece is previewing, right? Reviewing and then previewing. And so how this ties in the journaling is looking at what was. How was it? Where was I 6 months ago, a year ago, whenever it was? Where am I now? and where do I want to be, and start to preview it, visualize where you want to go, calm, peaceful, right, at ease, with moving through life and relationships with grace and ease, and or whatever it is that you want. And the more you can focus on what you do want, right, it makes it easier for you to get there. And then the other part is sort of reframing, right? We look at what is, and we've got tend to have a negativity bias, and we see things in a negative light. And so how can we start to reframe that so that we can build on the reframe? Yes, absolutely. Accept what is, right? This is not about pretending something didn't happen or isn't happening. Interactions with your staff or with your boss or any of that. This is not pretending those situations aren't happening, but it's looking at it and reframing it and looking at it from a different perspective and seeing it in a light that maybe you wouldn't ordinarily see it, so that you can make adjustments.
I agree. You know, as you were talking, something came to my mind, and this is a great, I think, time to bring this up. Earlier in the show, I think both of us made a comment. I know I stressed it, that stress is not, I didn't mean to do that, I stressed it. That stress is not necessarily bad. And as you were asking me questions, I was thinking about this. We talk about the topic of the show, but we don't go into any detail. We just go, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. I had no idea you were going to ask me, okay, what are the techniques you use with your clients? Had this been 10 years ago, those questions would have caused me so much stress because I didn't prepare for those questions. You know how I used to be 10 years ago. Really, I need to have structure. I've learned to go with the flow. And one of the things that allows me to do that is when you ask a question that I have not prepared for, I take a breath. And that allows me not to get so uptight and worried about, how am I going to answer this question? I know the answer to this question because it's something that I use with my clients all the time. But even that being the case, in the past, I would have had to have had a framework to work through the question. So that's what I'm talking about. And I can only do that because you've put me in that situation many times. I've had other people put me in that situation. I've put you in that situation many times. It's that kind of stress that is good, that allows you to grow and to expand. And so I wanted to point it out because it's happening in the moment as we're actually talking about this.
So I wanted to talk about one other strategy that it is such a part of my life and a part of it where I don't want to say try to move my clients to, but help them recognize how important this is for their overall well-being. And it's movement, right? And when I say movement, that includes exercise, but it doesn't have to be exercise. And when I can emphasize that with my clients, particularly those who are not big exercisers, right? That I'm not talking about you need to get up and spend an hour on the treadmill. If you want to spend an hour on the treadmill or in the gym lifting weights, have at it, right? But I'm just talking about moving your body. So it could be walking, it could be yoga, right? It could be going out and playing pickleball or basketball or whatever. It's a sport. It's just moving your body. There is something about physically moving your body that, one, it moves energy in your body. So it's about energy, but it's blood flow, and it's just good for you. If you can do things that get your heart elevated and sweat a little bit, allows you to it allows you to move energy in a way that specifically is about exerting, like punching, boxing and kicking and things like that, right? It allows you to move that energy in a way that's different than, say, yoga, right? But all movement is good movement. And that I want to stress, all movement is good movement. And making a habit of moving every single day, some strenuous, some less strenuous, having recovery days. I do yin yoga, right? On recovery days, I do yin yoga. On more active days, I'm running or lifting weights, whatever, right? And mixing it up, playing sports, chasing around your kids, all of that counts. And walking, if you can't do anything else, getting out in the sunshine and the air and walking is crucial for good physical health, but it helps you emotionally and releasing energy that's pent up. When it used to be stressed out, when I had a job where I was stressed out constantly, I would take the stairs right in the building because it would allow me to move and release energy. Or I would go out on my lunchtime and go for a run or go to the gym, go do Pilates, whatever it is. I made a habit of having that built into my day. Love starting my day with exercise, but there was something about in the middle of the day, sort of releasing that energy. And again, if what you can do is walk, then get out and walk. Get some sunshine, get some fresh air, walk, and it allows you to have some time to clear your head.
Yeah, I think the key thing that you said is really just get it out of your body. You don't want it in your body, that stress. You don't want it inside that. You want to get it out. And movement is a great way, like you said, to expel that negativity, for lack of a better word, so that you have a place to put other things, other useful things in your body, whether other emotions. There's more expansive breathing, whatever it is. And it's a really excellent point that you brought up.
And I want to just say this last thing. As a leader in particular, this is directed to leaders. We're talking about recognizing stress, how it manifests. You have it, your team members have it, your culture has it, right? And so paying attention to the things that you are doing, the things that your team members are doing that create that tension and stress in your environment, in the culture, so that you can address it in a way that will minimize, I guess is the way I want to say, minimizing conflict, right? And particularly as we are moving through these next few weeks, if you're watching this live or in replay, right? Particularly over the next few weeks, that it's very easy when you are stressed to be short and to snap at people that you work with. And so you want to do what you can to create an environment where there's opportunity for the people on your team to de-stress, right? So be careful about asking for extras, right? You already got people who are on edge, and be careful about how you ask for something extra, whether it's overtime or, shortening deadlines or adding additional workloads over the next couple of weeks. Just paying attention to that and recognizing that your people are under stress, acknowledging that with them, saying that, and then being a little bit flexible.
Mm.
Yeah, as people are navigating their breaks and lunches, and that they may come back a few minutes late. It's like maybe this time of year you just let that stuff slide.
Yeah, I think that managers and leaders, as they are just looking at their employees when they're talking about performance appraisals, or just in general, their performance in general, is to see how your employees are doing. How are they navigating the stresses of the job, what they have to do? Use those as opportunities to talk to them as well about it, or just ask questions. If you notice something, if you notice that your employees stressed, hey, have a conversation. Don't ignore it. I had a boss that he tended to avoid anything that was about the other person. He didn't want to know anything. So he avoided those types of questions because he was worried that the person was going to start talking about personal things that were going on. But look, people bring their whole selves to work, and it's quite possible that they may bring up something personal. And if you can't handle it, most jobs have EAP. You have resources. You can help the person. You don't have to be so worried that they're going to talk about something personal that you just avoid it. They'll appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to first give you an opportunity to share how people can get in touch with you. And then I have a couple of gifts that I'm going to offer that can help in this area. So let's start with, if someone wants to work with you, Robert, how can they get in touch with you and you help them de-stress?
They can reach me at inspireme@roberthilliardcoaching.com, or they can just go to the website, Robert Hilliard Coaching, and there's a form I have on there. You can contact me there. Let me know. I said this before, what ails you, what stresses you out. We can come up with a custom plan for you. I have many resources that I share with my clients when they are stressed out. So if you are stressed, especially now because of the holidays or beyond, please reach out to me.
Awesome. Awesome. And I want to offer you an opportunity to turn that off. An opportunity to get a little resource that I put together. It's a 30-day challenge, and it's called Holiday Harmony. And you can get that at holidayharmony.now.site, holidayharmony.now.site. It is a simple guide. It includes things that we've talked about. There are daily activities for 30 days that you can do. It includes reflection exercises with writing prompts, and then suggestions. Simple things like listening to a podcast on a particular topic, or going out and taking a walk, or picking flowers, or whatever it is, right? So there are 30 different things that you can do, simple things that can help you to de-stress, and then the writing prompts to help you get in touch with what you're feeling and how you're feeling. What you're feeling, how you're feeling, and sort of processing through that. The other one is an ebook that I wrote called Unwinding Anxiety, Practices that help move you from stress to making stress a strength, right? Is transforming stress into a strength. And if you're interested in that, put in the comments ebook. Just put in the comment ebook, and I will get a copy of that ebook to you. But the other one, holidayharmony.now.site, you can go there and get your copy of that. So with that, Again, we want to thank you for being here. Hope this sets you off on a good path as you march through the next month or so through the holidays. Several different holidays coming up. This isn't about any one particular one. And the tools, the resources, the strategies we've shared, as Robert said, will help you beyond the holidays. So Thursdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific, we are here talking all things leadership. We hope to see you next week, and let's move into the holidays and have a great time. Be de-stressed. De-stress. De-stress.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Move, right, breathe. There you
Move,
go.
right, breathe. That should be our motto for the holidays. Move, right, breathe.
There you go. So until next time, take care.
Bye now.